The next 5 weeks, we lived in the center of this town on a little compound. It was like a pineapple farm. We weren't doing the normal volunteer or missionary activities. We were just living day-to-day life and learning from people in this community. We woke up every morning. We carried water on our head. We cooked over an open stove. We didn't have any electricity or running water or plumbing or anything like that. And it was wonderful. It was also the most challenging experience of my entire life. But my favorite part about these 5 weeks that I spent in South Sudan were hanging out with the little kids that lived down the street. You see, our neighbors, they were a compound of orphans and widows. I want to tell you about my friend Boyd. He's that kid right there with his hand up. Every time I try to take his picture and I said smile, he would just start dancing. So every single picture that I have of him is super blurry and like not good, but I like this picture. Homeboy would every time you asked him to smile or he started laughing, his chin would jut weirdly to the right, and it was so cute. He wore the Superman shirt every single day, and it had so many holes in it, and it smelled so gross, and it was my favorite shirt. He would come over to our house every night, and he'd be holding this bucket, and his sister had told him to look for chickens. He would always lose his chickens, so he'd be coming back to pick up his chickens, and so, and every night we'd be playing cards or something, and we'd convince him to stay with us and hang out for this little while. He never found his chickens. So he was just the most vibrant, beautiful kid I've ever met in my entire life. And from the beginning, I knew that he was going to impact my life in a big way. His sister Monday was a vision of strength and courage. East African women are some of the most powerful and strong people in the entire world. And Monday was a perfect example of that. She also had the most vibrant and contagious smile and laugh that you could hear coming from a mile away. So I remember one day we were walking to the market. It was about 2 weeks into living in South Sudan. Every Wednesday and Saturday, we would have to walk 3 miles to the market and 3 miles back with food for the week. And every day we would pass Boy and Monday's compound. And so this one particular day, my friend turned to me and Emma and she said, "Guys, do you know their story?" And we said, "No, but why don't you tell us? We love hearing stories." So we were passing their compound. And she got this somber look on her face, and I knew that it was going to be a tough one. And she said to me, "Maddie, when Boy was 3, you see, a lot of people struggled a lot after the war. With alcoholism, depression, and stuff like that. A lot of people committed suicide. But Boy's father one night was drinking really heavily, and he had a gun. And he picked Boy up, and he slipped his little fingers in the gun and pulled it to his own head and pulled the trigger. And they found Boy's father with his little son. I don't know why anyone would ever do that, but that's what happened. And then about a week later, his mom, whether it was because she couldn't handle the grief or what, she left and married another man and took one of Boy's sisters with her. I was standing on this path and I felt like I was going to throw up. I felt like somebody had punched me in the face. I was looking at this kid that I loved so dearly and wondering how in the hell anyone could ever do that. I don't have that answer. But I do know that the next 3 weeks, every time that kid would come over, I would swoop him up into this massive hug. And it was really weird because South Sudanese people don't really hug, they do this weird shoulder tap. So he was so confused and annoyed that I was hugging him and crying, but just had to be that way. So even in the times where me and Emma had weird parasites or malaria, and we just didn't feel like being in South Sudan anymore, because that happens a lot. A lot of times you just get really tired of South Sudan. But the next 3 weeks, we just felt so compelled every time these kids came over to just love them and love them well. To hold them, to play Uno when we were really tired of Uno. to play soccer when our chacos were giving us blisters, to do all these things that they wanted to do because they needed to know that they were loved and loved so dearly. And our 5 weeks went by and we came home, and we became American college students again. We went back to school, and I didn't pay attention in class for like the first month and a half, like no idea what happened. I was just thinking about Africa. But you can't live like that forever. You have to come back and you have to be present where you are. We heard a bunch of people talking about tonight. You have to be present. So we became present again, and we took these experiences that we had, and we became new people, and we tried to love people well where we were. And then I went home for Christmas break, and I was so excited to spend time with my family. We hadn't gotten to spend a lot of time with our family, so this was the opportune time to just love them. And I was also really excited because I wanted my family to come to Africa with me, to come and see the places that I had seen and love the people that I had loved. And so I came home, I finally had cable, and I sat down on the couch and I turned on the news and watched in absolute horror as South Sudan went up in flames again. Civil war broke out mid-December. Fighting started in the capital and then started spreading to all the cities, fighting along ethnic and political lines, and thousands of people were dying. I remember reading this one report where this family was trying to flee their home. And as they were leaving, they remembered that one of their daughters was still in the house and they went back to get her, but an army tank had already come in and crushed the entire house. Most people ignored these reports from South Sudan, but I read every single one. And I broke. I have read a lot of news reports about things that are happening in the world, but this was different. I broke. What was the point of believing in good when people were just going to kill each other? I heard stories from our friends that were still in South Sudan that all the foreigners were being evacuated, all the Americans were coming home, their governments were coming to rescue them. And I knew that if Emma and I had been there, we would have been airlifted out. We would have had to say goodbye to the people that we loved. Only my close friends really know how hard this time was for me. You don't really have anything when you stop believing in humanity. A couple months went by and I was back at school. And then I started remembering my kids. I started remembering the joy that I felt every single day. I started remembering redemption. I heard this woman speak. Her name is Immaculate Ilibagiza, and she's a survivor of the Rwandan genocide. At one point, she was coming up to a roadblock where there was a Hutu rebel waiting to kill her. And she looked at him and she said, "I am rooting for you. I'm rooting for the good inside of you." And he laid down his weapon and he didn't kill her. Sometimes all you need is somebody to root for the good. So I got up, and all the people that were telling us to stop believing in South Sudan, it was a lost cause, I said, no, I will not stop believing. Because I know the future of this country. And I knew that joy is something that you choose. It doesn't just happen to you. You don't just wake up every day in a horrible circumstance and feel happy. You have to choose it. But that's possible, I promise. Believing in the good and choosing joy will get you through everything. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Five weeks went by, and on our last day in South Sudan, we were coming home, or we were walking back to the road. We had packed up all of our stuff, and we were about to catch a taxi across the border. And we had planned to stop by Boy and Monday's compound and say goodbye. But they weren't there. I wanted to hug Monday and tell her that she was a beautiful woman. She single-handedly raised those kids and saved them. She dropped out of school, dropped everything, made money, and made sure that they stayed alive. She fended off all the people that wanted to tell Boy that he was the kid that killed his father. I wanted to hug Boy one more time and just tell them he was loved. But we didn't get to do that. Part of me is thankful because if I had seen them one more time, I don't know if I would have said goodbye. So I wrote something. You. Your clothes are tattered. Your feet are dirty and scabbed and calloused. And your chin juts to the right every time you open up your mouth to smile. Your Superman shirt smells like sweat and waste, and no little boy would wear it in America. And I love that shirt. And I remember the night that you came over to our house while we sat at the table by candlelight, playing cards and drinking hot tea. You were holding a blue bucket and you were looking for something. Chickens. You were looking for your chickens. So we told you to come over, come sit with us, and we'll give you food, and we'll pretend that we never have to say goodbye. And you stayed with us for hours, and oh, the joy, it brought me to tears. I fall to pieces because I love you. And then Monday called you home, and your little feet carried you into the streaming light of the Southern Cross. I wish that if I stepped out of my house and into cool mountain air and called your name, that you would hear me and run to where I am. I wish we called the same place home. And I walked to your house with the camera around my neck. I wanted to take your picture. I wanted to remember what 8-year-old Boy was like before he is hardened by hard things. But I didn't get a perfect picture to put into a wooden frame because every time I said smile, you started dancing. No one can keep you from dancing. Hold on to that part of you, my sweet boy, and don't ever let anyone tell you to stop. Don't let the sounds of sorrow or the expectations of poverty keep you from teaching the world how to dance, because you are a teacher, my boy. I know this because I spent 5 weeks as your student learning more from you than I ever did in school. And I'll come back, so wait for me. And don't grow a day older until I can be there to watch and write down the many chapters of your life in the pages of my broken heart. I wish we could be a family, me and you and the people we love. And we can be, and we are. When they tell you what happened, I won't tell you not to cry. I'll hold you, and we'll let the water drip from our eyes, and our tears will hydrate the earth beneath us, and we'll grow stronger together and be delivered from the demons that try to silence the rhythm of your joy. I'll come back, so wait for me. I love you, my son, my little boy.